What's up, Reject Nation? Greg and John here today. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. We are going to watch from a heavy spoiler. And by the way, really quick, we got our Train to Busan movie reaction coming out this week. Keep a lookout for that. But we're going to watch some heavy spoilers. Squid Game theories that massively change the way how you view the ending. We'll see about that, Paul. Paul from Heavy Spoilers.
Changed my mind, Paul.
I'm the new Home Alone kid. I'm Paul.
I'm gonna set a trap and make a cheeky joke. Make a dad joke while I'm at it.
Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul, and this is me before watching Squid Game. This is me after, and that's because the series is filled with lots of over-the-top deaths, challenges, and a major twist ending that has a lot going on with it.
Yeah,
because of the major reveals, there's several fan theories floating around about the show, including how Gi-Hun almost became a god, his relationship with Il-nam, the VIPs, and a lot more. Throughout this video, we're going to be grinding the best of them, but I'm putting a red light on right now if you don't want any spoilers. If you enjoy the video, then please hit the thumbs up button, and also make sure you subscribe for breakdowns.
Green light your way to heavy spoilers.
With that out of the way, thank you for clicking this. Now let's get into our Squid Game theories. Okay, so throughout the series, we learn a lot about the setup of the Squid Game, including the guards and also those in control.
Guards.
Though the security that works in the compound
became a
seems
guard.
like they're all part of the vast organization too, it could be that they were selected much in the same way that all of the players were. In episode 1, we come across a mysterious character played by Gong-Yoo, who offers Gi-Hun two choices. He can either pick a blue card or a red card, and Gi-Hun goes with the latter, which could end up cementing which type of player that he is in the game. Lucy.1 on TikTok came up with a theory the other day that had Gi-Hun chosen the red card, that he could have ended up becoming a god instead of the player that he was. If we're going deeper into this, then it's definitely a possibility, and the gods themselves seem just as trapped as the players are. They sleep in cells, are killed for even revealing their faces, and though they seem like they're in control, we can see from the way that they're treated that they actually have very little power.
That is a sound theory. I love that because, they don't answer where the guards come from, and they do seem like they're either employees. They don't seem like they're as equally held captive.
Yeah, they're still grunts and they're still subject to the will of the VIPs above them. And even though they get certain, sometimes very nasty privileges, it does seem like they are somewhat victims of the overall system still.
They even had like one of the guards who lifted off their mask. One of the earlier ones, the first one who got killed was a kid. If you were to be thrusted into this position, maybe it must be some type of malicious recruitment tactic as well. Whoa, that's a pretty solid theory.
Yeah, and then what are they playing for or working towards, or just get a paycheck?
Health benefits.
Yeah, they get benefits, they get healthcare, dental.
They also have very little knowledge of what's actually going on and don't know who each other are. Everyone is kept in the dark so that they can leave the facility without really knowing the truth, and therefore it seems like this might be a one-time thing for them, just like the players. Similar to the players, they're also given numbers, and this is definitely an interesting theory. The more we learn about the game, the more it seems like the gods are almost just as powerless as the players, hinting towards this perhaps being the case. Now, in our last video, we talked about all the clues and hints that Il-nam was actually the one in control of the game. This included things like the files starting at 2 instead of 1, him instructing the frontman to end the riots, and also the marbles area being modelled on his childhood home. The marbles one was where he faked his own death, and this enabled him to leave the game before the numbers were whittled down even further. Though it seemed like the perfect plan, it may have been a last minute one, and it could be that he was actually never supposed to play it in the first place. Now, shoutouts for Fahim Zaman, who on our last video theorized that Il-nam didn't actually want to be picked for this, but Gi-Hun showed him some compassion, and this is why he let him win and proceed to the next round. If we look at the day before, Il-nam was incredibly ill, or at least he said he was. Throughout the games, he was pretty much seen as just a liability, and as the lead up to the marbles involved partnering up with people, it could be that he actually intended to come across so bad that no one would ever choose him. However, Gi-Hun did, and instead 2-on-2 was the one that was left behind.
I don't personally buy into that theory because they constructed the whole setup, the stage where the marbles game was played, to resemble his home, his childhood home, right? So it seems like it was custom made for his desires. Granted, it did appear, based off the flashback of the ending episode, that he kind of last minute joined the game.
Yeah, totally.
Where Frontman was like, what are you doing? You know?
So maybe it could have just been that he wanted it modeled after that to watch the game play out.
Because also buying into the whole thing of Ilnam being compassionate, feeling like, oh, you know, Gi-Hun's been pretty nice to me. I don't know. Compassion seems to be really lost in the ether here when it comes to Squid Game, even for our lovable old man. Because as much as you love him and are endeared to him, those final moments of him are much more telling than anything else. I don't think compassion's like, you know, this guy's actually kind of nice to me.
Yeah, no, compassion that you would show a horse, a racehorse.
I've been thinking about this since Fahim wrote it, and I think that the competition from this point onwards could have gone one of two ways. The first is that Ilnam knew that not being picked in this meant he'd get a free pass to the next round. Because of this, he could purposely pretend to be ill in the hopes that no one would choose him, and he'd sail right through it. He doesn't make any effort to even try and get a partner, and it's clear that he just wanted to sit at the back and keep a low profile. The second option is that he could have used this opportunity to fake his own death. When 2-on-2 is left behind at the beginning of the game, the show leads us to believe that she's going to be killed because she's the odd one out. However, she is saved, but I do think it's possible that had Ilnam been left behind at this point, that he would have used it to make his exit.
I mean, that is a good point, though,
that's a
because
solid
it is
point.
kind of weird reasoning for why they kept her alive. Anything else, you're like, all right, you're done. You're excommunicated. Bye. But that one, they're like, oh, well, let's justify this of why we keep you alive. Yeah, it does lend some weight to it, actually.
Yeah, I think that's actually a pretty fair theory.
It's a theory still, yeah.
You know, there's still a novelty to having it be modeled after his childhood home, and even if he's not playing the game, I would imagine, because he's still, you know, spectating.
The glass hopping game is super unpredictable because not only do you have to make sure that no one gets last place before you do, but you also have to hope that no one ends up pushing you through one like what we see. The guards at this point were under a strict policy to kill every player that attacked another one, but they seem to completely waive it at this point because it's all part of the game. Now, it could also be that Ilnam was no longer playing, and therefore they didn't need to have it in place for his safety, but either way, this is one of the most dangerous games to be a part of. Anyway, the relationship between Gi-Hun and Ilnam is sort of a weird one. Though it seems like the Squid Game is some Willy Wonka-esque way to choose someone to take his fortune, there may be other layers to it, and it is possible that Ilnam is actually Gi-Hun's father. Now, the first step towards this is pretty surface level, but nevertheless, it's something that we need to talk about.
All right, let's hear this.
And Gi-Hun are the first and last players of the game, and therefore their numbers have been clearly put in place to highlight to us that they are opposites. This can be applied to a number of things, including Gi-Hun being a poor player, whilst Ilnam is the overseer of the entire operation. Now, this doesn't really bring anything to confirm that they are related, but the numbers are purposely picked to show us that there is something tying the two together. Episode 3 gives us the first real big clue, as in that we find that Gi-Hun is lactose intolerant. He can't have the regular milk that the gods hand out, and therefore he requests chocolate instead. Ilnam overhears this and says to him that he must have been beaten by his dad when he was younger because he used to do the same to his son. On a second viewing of the season, this line stands out a lot, and there's another one when the pair play marbles. The whole area is purposely meant to resemble...
Oh, and he says, me too!
Though many of you pointed out on my last video that this doesn't really mean anything, comments by the characters definitely hold some significance. Now, not only does Ilnam find an area that looks exactly like his home, but Gi-Hun also says that the alley next to it is similar to where he grew up. It is possible that the pair are indeed related, but that they became estranged throughout their life whilst Ilnam was off playing Battle Royale. If that's indeed the case, then the entire games could have been set up to test whether his son is worthy to take over the mantle or not. The ending of the series has him inheriting Ilnam's money and joining him beside his deathbed. Though it seems like the game dies with him, we learn in the final few scenes that it's actually still going, and Gi-Hun ends up abandoning his trip to LA to stop things from moving forward.
Okay. I don't want to just fall for every theory or hear it.
Yeah.
You've already said a lot of great arguments for why that would be the case. I need to rewatch the season again to see if that thread would really line up. I start questioning some things that we don't know everything about Ilnam. Ilnam's clearly a wealthy dude. Why would he not take care of his son at all, or the mom, you know. What I always thought was that it was more figurative.
Symbolic,
It wasn't an actual...
Kind of
yeah.
like my son, or you could
Yeah.
have been my son, but not that you actually are.
Yeah, because we kept saying that when watching the show, like you get this like father-son dynamic, or it seems like there's something kind of happening there in place, and that's why Gi-Hun's so endeared to him.
Well, and when he's told his name, you would think that unless they were separated when Gi-Hun was just so young, you'd probably remember his dad's name.
Yeah.
Especially because they have that bit about, like, is that even your real name? And he's like, yes, it is my real name.
And you would think the revelation would come out in that moment too, since he's like divulging everything.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's his he knows it's his final moments.
I think there's a lot to debunk this. There's also not so much that it's like concrete.
Yeah.
It's like it could be an interesting thing to theorize. There are a couple questions that I can't quite get past. And then it makes me think of Gi-Hun's like traumatic flashback when he's thinking about the situation.
The strike.
I almost feel like that would maybe work as some kind of like means of dividing them up, and maybe he's experiencing the flashback in adult form when it really happened to him as a child, but that's just me getting convoluted.
So was Ilnam, this theory would that mean Ilnam was rich when he was part of Gi-Hun's life, and then he left and then went off with his rich business clients and then formed these games and decided to be like, one day my son will come here and see if he's worthy enough of inheriting this, even though I did not join this by playing it. I created this, but I will test my son's worthiness by having him compete in it. It's a little far-fetched.
Yeah, I mean, it's either that or he lost his family, then made the wealth, and then was just like, forget the family, I'm bored, I'm just gonna play these games.
And Gi-Hun ends up abandoning his trip to LA to stop things from moving forward. But what if he doesn't, and instead he eventually ends up taking over everything? After all, Gi-Hun is now extremely rich, and he may end up facing the boredom that Ilnam and the other VIPs do. We also see the idea of abandoning a child reflected in his stance at the end of the season. Gi-Hun was supposed to be traveling to LA to meet his daughter, but he's left her to get involved with the games instead. This could be the writers subtly hinting to us that something similar happened to Ilnam. Perhaps he too was supposed to go and get his child, but instead he took a different path and ended up abandoning him in order to set up the games, which would be reflected by Gi-Hun, who's now doing the same thing. Now the next one isn't so much a theory as it's a comment on us as an audience and how we are very similar to the VIPs. On our last video, Oval1TY left a comment discussing how they operate, and in many ways we are very much the same as them. In the season they arrive, lounge around as an audience, and watch the players die for their own entertainment. Though we're meant to look down on them and see them as evil, this is also something that we are doing too.
Yeah.
As much as the show was a shock to the system, we very much enjoyed it just as much as they do, and similar to them, we're anonymous to each other. We are very much the eyes of the VIPs, sat in our own homes, seeing the games play out before our very eyes.
We're important.
Okay, let's just clear something up. There's a major difference between being a billionaire using real life people to beat some battle royales.
You are a depraved sicko for enjoying this entertainment.
Versus an audience member being fully aware that this is a piece of fiction.
Yes.
Like, if this was a real life story I heard about, I would be like, that's horrible.
Never
they should
show me
stop
footage of
this.
that.
And
End this. Send the military.
This isn't right.
Whoever you need to get in there to stop this from happening again, do it.
Now the final theory centers around the front man, who we learn is controlling the game.
He's the cop's brother. I figured it out.
We know
Oh,
very little about
spoilers.
the character beyond the fact that he's Hwang Jun-ho's brother and that he disappeared in 2015. Episode 5 ends with Hwang Jun-ho coming across a filing system that contains all of the player profiles. In these he finds his brother, and therefore we can guess that he too was part of the process. Because he's still alive, he likely won it, and it is possible that he ended up becoming an overseer in the system, much like our theory for Gi-Hun's future. Now why I brought this up is because it clearly shows that there is precedent for winning players to end up taking part in an authority role, and therefore it could be easy for Gi-Hun to follow in his footsteps. I think it would be even wilder if it actually turned out that Gi-Hun, Hwang Jun-ho, and the frontman were all in some way related to Ilnam, and that they'd been put through their paces by their father to see if they were worthy enough to inherit the game.
What I'll say about how I took the ending, because I think you're onto something, and this is kind of a thought I had too. It seems like though, because when Gi-Hun got on the phone, wasn't that the front man who was like, "Don't do this, just go home, just go see your daughter,
That's
get on the plane."
sense I got, yeah.
It sounded like it was the front man who was talking to him, saying like 4:56, go. It's not like they were welcoming him to come back.
Come to inherit your fortune.
Yeah, come inherit. See if you would like to take over. So what if, like, for season 2, instead of just another round of Squid Game action, what if there is some type of trial he has to go? There's some trial they put people through to become the front man.
But what if he's not the first person to get out and then come back?
But why would he want to be the front man? Like, why would
I don't think he would want to be the front man.
He wants to expose you. He's got all this money in the world.
Well, yeah, and a vendetta against this entire operation.
Yeah.
Like, it would have to be the greatest, not only offer, but like rearranging of the truth.
Yeah.
And everything else surrounding the game for him
Yeah.
to plausibly take it over in any way.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, he even says that when he's going off. He's like, I'm going to tear the whole thing down, basically.
Anyway, there's a lot to think about, and what I love about Squid Game is that there's so many different things you can pull from it. Make sure you drop your best theories in the comment section below, and we might end up talking about them in an upcoming video on the series. I still want to do a season 2 video, but I'm just waiting for more info to drop. But yeah, either way, definitely keep an eye out for that.
Thank you, Paul. That was great.
Yeah.
Damn, I really loved the first half of this too. That was really making up for it. It was very gullible towards this first couple.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's crazy to think like this one show, the creator of this has created his own little Star Wars universe, hasn't he?
Yeah, and now whatever follows it up is going to be like so heavily hyped and scrutinized. And I mean, he's even
He should
said,
answer all the questions. every leave nothing a mystery.
Well,
And just spoil the fun.
yeah. Here's all your theories addressed. Here's some very basic answers to who everyone is.
Well, guys, thank you so much for being here. Keep a lookout for our Train to Busan reaction. Thanks, Paul, for allowing us to cover your video. Keep killing it. Looking forward to more Squid Game videos from you.
Yeah.
Don't do anything else. Cut it with the Batman crap.
Even if there's no season 2, just keep doing it.
Keep doing Squid Game.
Doing
There's
it.
more to unpack. More to unpack.
Fan fiction season 2.
See you guys.